someone who has opposed LGBT people's legal equality, who's expressed judgmental attitudes against abortion, and who's even expressed the view that people who have families without being married are doing something wrong.
Good evening, Internet. I am Plague Dr. Jim. Hope your week has been better than mine. Actually, I've had a pretty decent week this time. Got some subscribers, some of which I don't know personally, which was nice. Also had my first racist hate comment, the old YouTube baptism of fire. But there we are. Must be doing something right. We upset the racists last week, probably by mocking St. George's Day quite roundly and introducing the idea we should point and laugh the fuck at fascism. Wonderful.
You will debate me in the comments. You will not just run away. You are coward. You are coward.
There will be timestamps down in the description if you want to skip ahead. We're going to start off with Kate Forbes being Deputy First Minister. We opened tonight with Patrick Harvey giving a pretty fair assessment of who Kate Forbes is, but I'm just going to go in a little bit more detail, and I don't have to be nice because I'm not in Parliament standing up. I'm just a tool shouting at news. Kate Forbes desperately wants us to believe that her faith is just as valid and no different from any other, and isn't terrifyingly extreme, and that she isn't a joyless fundamental Christian who is in danger of being put inside the Wicker Man. The truth is, she belongs to the Wee Frees, the Free Church of Scotland. They are the most fundamental church within Scotland that aren't a tiny wee sect. They are literally the people who make sure that you can't buy a packet of fags on Stornoway on a Sunday. They close children's play parks on a Sunday in Stornoway. They literally shut down their website on a Sunday. I wish I was making this up. And she expects us to believe that she chose the ultra-orthodox, terrifying Calvinists because they just so happen to be the closest to her home. If you take a quick look here, there's quite a few churches in Dingwall to choose from. That's because it's a tiny town in the middle of bumfuck nowhere in the Highlands. But hey, at least Kate is saving on petrol money and reducing her carbon footprint, one assumes. And if her husband went down to the naughty hellfire strip club, I'm sure that would be fine if it was just as long as it was the closest pub to the home, eh, Kate? Except that, of course, the Wee Frees don't allow the pubs to open. In fact, the Wee Frees are so damn joyless they don't allow music at their services. They don't allow even modern hymns. It's all the boring old psalms with terrifying things like killing children in them and God being happy with that. So you can see why we might have a bit of an alarm of somebody being First Minister or Deputy First Minister with those beliefs. Also, she seems to judge abortion as the one pressing moral issue of progress as well. Now, Kate wants us to believe that this wouldn't impact her ability to impartially be Deputy First Minister, or the first job she wanted to take, First Minister. She had to reassure us she wasn't going to be a dictator. Now, we went over this with Humza last week. If you have to say that you're not a lame duck, you're already roasted and in hoisin. If you have to say you're not a dictator, then that, quite frankly, fills me with somewhat of an alarm, especially if people are saying, are you going to take us into a theocracy? You know, it's just, I just don't feel reassured by that particular turn of phrase, Kate. I also think that somebody who probably hasn't ever had an orgasm shouldn't be judging other women on if they want to have children out of wedlock or if they want to choose to have an abortion. Now, of course, her views on gay marriage are what the Bible says, and she follows the Bible to the exact literal word of God. Except, of course, the Bible also bans women from wearing trousers. Embarrassing there, Kate, isn't it? All that I really have a problem with is the massive hypocrisy of Kate. Because Timothy 2:12 quite clearly states that a woman should have no place of authority over a man and should remain silent. And this is why Kate is banned from holding any position of power or authority in the church that she goes to. In fact, she probably wouldn't be allowed to speak in front of the congregation. So why should we permit you to speak in front of Holyrood, Kate? It seems strange. It seems a massive hypocrisy that you want to limit the freedoms of gay people, people who are trans, and cast judgment on people who have abortions and children out of wedlock, when you yourself, well, you're not following God's word, are you? You should be believing that, quite frankly, your pain during labour is because of the sin of Eve, and just squeezing out more melon-headed farmers with the joyless lab experiment that you call a husband. It's been embarrassing that Swinney has had to keep his friends close and the religious lunatics closer, just in case they pull any levers of power because God told them to. It's also embarrassing that he had to give the job to somebody who had cocked up the ferries so absolutely and dreadfully. The truth is that independence is looking more and more like a pipe dream at the moment, especially as a Minister for Independence has been removed from the cabinet as well. Lacking any credible leader or real path to independence, it seems to be, for the meantime, goodbye Yellow Brick Road and better luck next time. In a follow-up to a story that we covered last week, it seems that another Boeing whistleblower has come forward. A man with such testicular fortitude, balls of sheer tungsten that I cannot even begin to comprehend but only admire, has come forward with yet more faults with Boeing aircraft. Best of luck faking your own death somewhere outside Zurich. Really hope that you've got a life expectancy longer than old school punk EP, and Godspeed. Also another follow-up in Elon's litany of complete clusterfuck disasters. The Neuralink has started to detach from the brain that it was implanted into. So, Elon fanboys, I really thoroughly recommend that you sign up for Phase 2 of human trials as quickly as possible, given that you're not going to get to Mars anytime soon. Staying with Elon briefly, much like his ex-wife Grimes, Elon seems to have been tweeting daring the IRA to kick shit off again. Thanks for that, Elon. I mean, it's not like the situation is starting to heat up and your completely baseless nonsense that you bear in a situation you barely comprehend is welcome, I have to say, especially when the old school IRA are telling the latest bunch of upstarts,
"Whoa, steady on there, son. What you doing with those rifles? They're supposed to be decommissioned now. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But seriously though, steady. We've almost got the numbers, sure. Just don't you be shitting the bed now. There's a path to democracy here. And the prods are totally fucking themselves."
So, after years of the Good Friday Agreement, thanks for just stoking tensions for no fucking reason with your idiot South African opinion there, Elon. We'll now cover the English elections, which I sagely and wisely didn't really cover that in that much depth last week, because at the time of recording, the information purely wasn't there. That didn't stop mainstream news outlets having less sense than a rookie YouTuber who's just making jokes and doesn't want to get egg on its face when, it turns out to be not quite as transpired, and took a story that seemingly started from a low-level Tory activist who from what we can tell, might have had access to some kind of turnout results, and from that, wildly speculated that it might be closer than it actually was for Khan. A story which the BBC and Laura Kusenberg jumped on like the last cock at an orgy, and started to spread like gonorrhea during Freshers' Week. This story just grew arms and legs until it was actually announced that Khan won by over 200,000 votes, about 11% of the share, and his most convincing win to date. Now, I'm a Scot, I don't really visit London that much, and I'm not really a fan of Khan, it has to be said. On the other hand, it has been hilarious to watch the Gammons completely rage about this, and the reaction to it as well was just lunacy, because the Tories fielded just a no-hoper, somebody who couldn't even look normal on the front of the Standard, to the extent that the Tories freaked out and said that the Evening Standard, who usually gives them a soapy hand job in the press, were somehow sabotaging her campaign because she couldn't look sane on the front of it. In fact, every picture that I've been able to find of her kind of looks like she needs some orderlies to come in with a big bastard syringe and take her down quietly. That's before we even get to the gaffes. I'd previously recorded this. This is actually take 2. I had to keep on going back and again and again and again as I kept uncovering more and more dirt and just weird behaviour from Susan Hall. She started off really badly by wanting Donald Trump to win again, because Sadiq didn't, and she was saying, "Oh, come on, Donald, wipe the grin off his face." She then tweeted out baseless accusations that the election was rigged, which she then recanted and said, "Oh, I don't know why I liked that." You must have known at the time, or you must have thought perhaps I should sanitize my social media account like any Labour MP who ever voiced anything supportive of Jeremy Corbyn in the Great Purge recently. But no, that was just left there. She also retweeted Katie Hopkins, calling London London Stan and Khan to be at nipple height. Don't remember Susan Hall being a strapping 6-footer either. She then erroneously made up that she'd been pickpocketed when actually she couldn't keep a hold of her own purse. Not exactly mayor material. Then, when it was discovered that it was handed in with 40 quid still inside, well, it could have been stolen. How? What pickpocket leaves the money in? Unless he took a look at your took a look at your ID and took pity on you, or perhaps just terror, looking into those soulless, piercing eyes. So Cruella Braverman then came and tried to say what went wrong. And unsurprisingly, that was a load of unhinged nonsense that seemed to be broadcast directly from the moon as well. Apparently it wasn't the gaff-ridden lunatic who couldn't ever win in multicultural London, but was in fact that the Tories hadn't been tough enough on trans people, that schools could actually say it's okay to be trans to pupils. That was her whole thing. If in doubt, blame the trans. If you get absolutely hammered because nobody cares about your policies and you're just ranting about a fringe issue that only covers 3% of the population at most, they're going to be turned off. They're not going to vote for you. And the trans panic is quite weirdly on the nose at the moment, because it was this week that the first book burnings happened in Nazi Germany. Something that J.K. Rowling, bless her, please go to therapy, Joan, denied happened, that because she wants to make up the lie that there were no such thing as trans people back then. What's really happening is that trans people seem to be the canary in the coal mine every time. When you read in school, Martin Niemöller, he wrote that poem, First They Came for the Socialists. You may know it as First They Came for the Communists, as that's a bit more accurate. And they changed that in translation, so you would know that. If they were being really honest, it would be, First They Came for the gays and the gender nonconformists. But Martin Niemöller didn't care, because he was a fundamentalist Christian. He didn't care right up until the point where he was imprisoned. The line that was really crossed for him was not when they went after the Jews at the start, but when they went after Jews who had converted to Christianity. That was the bridge too far. It was only really when he was imprisoned that he started to see the bad points of the Nazi regime and fascism. A real warning from history there about sticking your head in the sand and thinking that the leopards won't eat your face. But again, we keep seeing this hysteria about trans people, especially from the right wing. And their press talk about it way more, many times more than the left press do. It's their obsession. It's their boogeyman that they have to wheel out to say, this is why we're not winning. This is why. This is the one cheat code. And much like the rhetoric from Susan Hall, I'm sorry, there just aren't enough fash. There aren't enough racists. There aren't enough people who genuinely care and are that transphobic. It's not a big enough issue. You can't push enough people down your dickhead to fascist pipeline quick enough for that technique to work, thankfully. Especially when everybody's more concerned about just their standard of living being erased. Moving on to another dickhead sharing fake news, we go to Billie Piper's ex and the weakest sperm in the acting dynasty, Laurence Fox, who floated the idea that all of the major cities in England were now run by Muslims. They were all Muslim mayors. That list, as far as I can tell, contained a Sikh, which is quite amusing, considering that the whole gig of being a Sikh is that you're very much not Muslim. Their whole thing, being there on the borders of Pakistan, was to be this warrior cult, this warrior class, who aren't allowed to circumcise and are not allowed to eat halal food. I was once in a newsagent's in Edinburgh, and there was a wee Ned, a wee chav, that came in and used the P slur. You know the one that I'm talking about, the one that rhymes with wacky backy, hacky sacky. You know, I don't have to say it. And the guy who was behind the counter wearing a turban really took offence at that. Not because of the P slur, but because he'd been mistaken from coming from Pakistan. You know, I am a Sikh! How dare you out of my shop! And then everybody clapped. Well, at least I laughed at the wee Ned who was getting kicked out. Incidentally, I'd learned recently why all Neds have that kind of big man, I kind of voice. It's because when the male Ned of the species injects his buckfast-ridden sperm into the female Ned and then is never seen again, there's nobody to tell the kids how to speak, so they all start to speak like their mother and just have that, hey, big man, I totally have a voice like they've had their bollocks taken off. So there is a reason for it, apparently. Reason for many things. One of the other mayors that Laurence erroneously claimed was actually not religious, just broadly speaking Christian in a spiritual sense rather than any kind of real sense, and a guy called Colin. I'm willing to take corrections on that, unlike Laurence, but that was one of the mayors I found was Colin. I think we can safely assume that Colin is not a Muslim. Might be a convert, who knows, but I'm willing to take a punt on that. But it's been just glorious to watch Loz's career nosedive in the way that it has. Much like in the bonus episode, and check that out in the end of the video on Russell Brand, he's just dynamited his own career. The hilarious thing for me was when he thought he could be Batman, when he brought it up in his libel case, when he thought that he could just throw the word paedophile out and there would be no consequences. And he brought up that he thought that he'd lost being able to be Batman, that his agent had somehow convinced him, you're in with a decent shout there, Laurence. Just make sure nobody calls you a racist on Twitter, and not the racist things that he said and being a complete lunatic burning pride flags in his back garden. Imagine being his kid. I mean, I'm sure his kid was the one that was forced to take that photograph. Things to bring up in therapy when you're an adult. Along with the time that your dad tried to prove to everybody what a great father he was by posting some absolutely cremated sausages on social media, breaking your own privacy at this time. Just fuck off, Laurence. Just fuck right off. He was also clowned on by the son of the writer of Dad's Army in an amazing sentence of just, you're a clickbait warrior that lost to a bin, which really sums up the free fall of Laurence Fox, hopefully into obscurity. GB News, Laurence Fox's previous employer, at least I think it's previous, he's been suspended. I don't know if he's back. They seem to be not having a great time of it either at the moment, with huge losses in the second year. It would be tempting to think that this means something, that people aren't turning on, that it's not washing its face. And they do seem to be pretty desperate. When I bought a new television, I immediately deleted GB News from it, and it sprang back up like whack-a-mole, just on the home screen when I switched it on, like an unwanted turd floating back up the bowl. The other thing about GB News is I think that the people who are backing it just want there to exist this weird propaganda outlet for bizarre right-wing conspiracy theories, because they need the idiot to fascist pipeline to exist. They're speed-running fascism, and it's not going quick enough. The election results aren't there for them. So this is just an investment for them. They don't, not an investment in terms of return on investment in money, but just return on investment in trying to force people down this right-wing funnel of insanity. One of the more batshit insane voices they've got on GB News, of course, is Neil Oliver, the caterpillar that didn't turn into a butterfly, not even into a moth, drawn straight in the burning lamp of alt-right fucknuttery that seems to just torch your career, but into a larger, even more wrong caterpillar. The last time I saw him, he was quoting from The Golden Bough. Now, that's a book that I have actually read. I've got a tangential interest in history and superstition like that. But it's a book we stopped using many, many years ago because it's just not right anymore. It's this weird poetic book that tries to explain everything from the history of mythology. I do recommend reading it, just not in the way that Neil Oliver has obviously read it. He's just months away from starting his own kind of shamanic men's movement. He is, as we speak, just about becoming the Scottish Jordan Peterson. I'm sure he is cooking up some kind of quasi-historical cult that he is going to lead some weird divorced men into. And they're all going to gather together, strip naked, get completely ripped to the tits on an adrenochrome and ergotine under a flinty sterling sky and sacrifice a dog or something. He's completely lost the plot in very, very strange ways. It would be good to have you on the show, Neil. This is an open invitation to Neil Oliver to join us here on Shouting at News, to join me, Plague Dr. Jim. We won't have a debate or anything. I'm not going to debate your batshit insane ideas. We're just going to get absolutely tooled up on drugs and go up Cairnpapel Hill. I'll bring the insane chaos magic and you can bring whatever system of batshit cultism you want to bring to the table. All that I will say is I will draw the line at eating bollocks, because you speak enough of them. And we'll see who can raise the angry spirits of the ancient dead to bend to their will and destroy the other one. In some kind of priest on priest, the young pretender Plague Dr. Jim against the old fart-talking absolute nonsense Neil Oliver. Fight for the golden bough, because I know you're gonna understand what I'm talking about here. The old priest at the grove, eh, Neil? That's you. I've got my eye on your woodland crown, Neil. I know the deep and old magics, Neil, as well as the new ones. Dare you, Neil? Shaman on shaman conflict, only our own souls staring back at each other, Neil. Come on the show, Neil. I dare you, Neil. I absolutely dare you. I've seen through the veil, Neil. I don't need faith. I have proof. I have seen the old gods, Neil. I dare you. I open this invitation to you. Only one of us will climb out at sunrise with our sanity intact, Neil. I shall summon the great and swift spear of Lugus, Neil. Have you seen him? Can you summon him, Neil? I dare you, Neil. If you're still here, I'm Plague Dr. Jim, about to sign off. Please give us a like. Please give us a subscribe. If you've enjoyed this, please punt it on to other people. I'm trying to grow the channel here. And until next time, I'll say goodbye and peace.